evening and welcome to Church Farm School. I was going to name this concert a few of my favorite things, but I thought people would start to think of Julie Andrews, and we're not doing any of those kinds of few of my favorite things, but these pieces are in fact a few of my favorite things that I have loved and listened to since I began college, but never had the opportunity to perform. So I'm sharing those pieces with you this evening. Early on, Richard Strauss was a favorite of mine in terms of his composition of song. In fact, some of his best works are his songs, even though he composed orchestral works and operas as well. The first two of these songs speak about love. The first is a gratitude for love, and the second, is a tenderness for love. And if you look in your programs, you'll see the English translations, which I encourage you to follow along because it gives real insight into the detail of how Strauss composed these pieces. Not surprising that he wrote them as well for his wife, Pauline, who was a professional soprano at the time. So in his mind were not only these songs written for her for the music, but also for the poetry as well. We will perform the first two pieces without interruption.
Ja,
a poem, the last one, Im Abendbrot, at dusk. And he was very touched by it because it reflected to him the relationship, the long-loved relationship that he'd had with his wife. And he was impacted to write that along with 3 other songs, and actually a 4th song that's not really considered one of the 4 last songs, or we couldn't call them the 4 last songs, they did the 5 last songs. But he wrote these 4 together really the last year of his life. In fact, he never heard them being premiered. The songs themselves do talk about death, but they talk about it in a compassionate way, and one is embracing the concept of death, the act of death. And through the images that, again, if you look at the text, images of sunset and considering one's life at that time of day, talking about sleep and the soul soaring up in dream, as well as the fading of summer into fall, all those images of death in a variety of ways to describe it. I've loved these songs since, I told the students this today, I've loved these songs since I was in college, and I saw a movie called The Year of Living Dangerously, and in the middle of it was the most famous part of the 3rd song, where it talks about the soul actually soaring and flying. It's just one of those gorgeous melodies ever. And I didn't know where the piece came from, and I had to do quite a bit of research to finally find what that song was. And so it's been, again, very special to me. The thing about these songs, though, is that they were actually written originally as orchestral songs, not piano songs. And we're talking about an 80-piece orchestra, so huge orchestra, lots of color with it, beautiful melodies, and one would ask, well, why are you playing them on the piano? And it is a really good question to be asked, given that of all the recordings out there, I've only found one recording with a pianist and a singer. Generally, it's always orchestral singers and orchestra and singers. And the only reason I'm doing them tonight is because I really love the songs and I've wanted to play them all my life. But they do present a challenge for any pianist that plays them, because they have to be played in a way that you wouldn't normally play the piano. I have to create sounds that sound like the instruments, or play notes that aren't written actually in there, and to play larger than the piano actually is scored to write. So there's a bit of a challenge, a good challenge for me as well. But the bottom line is I love these songs, and I'm really delighted to share these with you, especially with Miss Ames singing them for you this evening.
Oh, that much. Harry returns. I certainly want to say a word of thanks to Courtney Ames for all of her hard work and efforts in sort of providing. Mr. Gress will be able to also introduce Mr. Solo, who is our guest cellist this evening. What's most impressive about all of this is, and I hope it dawns on each of you, I'm addressing the boys here, the amount of work. Mr. Gress speaks of that, but it's not just what he's been doing since the summertime. It's really a long career and a love of music that goes into providing a night like tonight for our school community. Classical music, almost like broccoli, is an acquired taste. It's something you need to work on and you need to savor and try again and again to develop that deeper appreciation. And for many of you, it may be your first taste of this type of music. But for others who have been here at the school for a while, know the talent that Mr. Gress has, and not only his love of music, but his abiding concern for you, for your understanding of a world that has a vast treasury of artistic desire and talent. And it's not just in one place, but in many different places. And the classics hold a time-honored piece of that. In our world culture, not just in our national culture. And so to be afforded these types of evenings is a special treasure. I know it's a command performance for you. You're required to come. But on the other hand, I appreciate your openness and your learning as we go through each movement, when to hold your applause, when to applaud, and how that all works. That's all part of it. That's part of this great education of ours. So I hope that you really are enjoying the evening, and we'll look forward to many more. And you'll let Mr. Gress know throughout the week about all of that. I also want to say a word of welcome to our guests this evening, men and women who have been supporting the school in one way or another, or maybe new friends who have just found their way here this evening thanks to their friendships with others. After the performance, there'll be a small reception of light refreshments in the headmaster's house, which is right behind the chapel. If you went out this door, I believe, even though the sun is setting earlier, these are solar-powered, a little sort of a walkway garden lanterns that can, there's a little bit of a driveway to the house, and we would love to have you come to spend some time with us, obviously with Gary and his musical guests as well. The boys get invited back to study hall and other good things that go along with intellectual pursuits, right? Thank you very much for that. That's applause for yourself, I know that, as things go along. But enjoy the second half of the program. Again, Mr. Gress will introduce a little bit more about that as he did this morning. But again, thank you all for coming out tonight. And for our special guests, we hope to see you next door right at its conclusion. Mr. Gress.
So for those of you who felt that it was a little slow-paced ending at the first half, fear not. We're taking care of that on the second half here. Rachmaninoff is one of my favorite composers as well. He wrote this piece in 1901 after 3 years of literally writing nothing and in a deep depression over the abject failure of his first symphony. And after that 3-year period, suddenly he burst out of that period of death, shall we say, and wrote 3 magnificent works: the Symphony No. 2, the Piano Concerto No. 2, and this cello sonata. The piece was written for a friend of his, a cellist friend of his, who actually ended up being best man in his wedding, or the other way around. So they were very close friends. And Rachmaninoff himself did not like the title of cello sonata because he felt that it underplayed the role of the piano. And I think most pianists who have spent hours learning this piece would say piano sonata with some cello is probably the accurate way, but no offense to that on Mr. Solo's part. Anyway, this is just as equally important to me, or delightful to me, because I discovered this song around the same time I discovered the Strauss Four Last Songs, that period in my second year, between first and second year of college. And the reason was I was working on the second piano concerto, and through studying realized he wrote this other piece with the same fantastic melodies, the same beautiful harmonies. It just didn't require an orchestra to play along with it.
Rachmaninoff, of course, was born and grew up in Russia, but he ended up living in Los Angeles, where I also grew up. In Los Angeles, my cello teacher was likewise a transplanted Russian, Gregor Piatigorsky, who knew Rachmaninoff very well and had performed this sonata with Rachmaninoff. So I had the great pleasure of studying the sonata with a cellist who had played it with Rachmaninoff, which not too many people have that opportunity. One other thing that I thought you might be interested to know, as Gary was talking about Rachmaninoff's depression at the failure of his first symphony, Rachmaninoff was, of course, not only a great composer, but he was a great pianist. What he really was interested the most in, however, was in his composition. What was very frustrating to him was that he was known to the general public much more as a pianist than as a composer. Now that he's been dead for about 77 years, I think it is, it's really only connoisseurs of old recordings that even think of him as a pianist. He's now completely known as a composer. Another interesting thing about his composition career is that when he was composing, he was looked at by many professional musicians as kind of a conservative throwback to the 19th century. When people like Schoenberg were writing things that were much more atonal. Nowadays, again, we don't even think of that. It's all kind of merged back into the past, and he's just Rachmaninoff, who is known particularly for his luscious and wonderful melodies. And to pianists, he's known for the quantity of notes that he throws at them.
Boys, have a good night, and our guests, we hope to see you next door.